Hello, everyone. My name is Welhimina Brempong, and I am the program coordinator for the Cleveland Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program, MOTTEP for short. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Cleveland MOTTEP Let's Talk About Vaccines podcast. Our vaccine education program is aimed at increasing confidence in COVID-19 vaccinations in our target neighborhoods, the Huff and University Circle neighborhoods. Funding for these efforts are made possible by the Centers for Disease Control Foundation as well as the Centers for Dialysis Care Foundation. With these funds, we've been able to hire community educators to attend community events, host vaccine clinics and workshops, as well as targeted COVID-19 and influenza messaging in the greater Cleveland community. We have also been able to have public service announcements on Channel 5, as well as host this podcast. Thank you for joining us on Cleveland MOTTEP's Let's Talk About Vaccines podcast. I'm joined here by Laura Durda and Linda Kimball to discuss vaccine equity and how community-based organizations play a part in ensuring equity to health for all. Linda and Laura, could you go ahead and introduce yourselves for me?
Yes, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited, and my name is Laura Durda. I work for the CDC Foundation as a program officer, and one of my main things is to support our CBOs that we partner with across the country, and Cleveland MOTTEP is one of them, and I'm just very happy to be here and be part of it.
Wonderful. Linda, could you go ahead?
And my name is Linda Kimball. I'm the Executive Director for Cleveland MOTTEP, which is the Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program. I've been the Executive Director for almost 13 years. It will be 13 years in October. I basically, at Cleveland MOTTEP, kind of guide the activities and programming of our organization. And I'm excited about being here with Laura because she has been our actual program officer for our vaccine program for the 3 years that we've been actually implementing our program.
Wonderful. Before we get into the interview, I wanted to ask you guys an icebreaker. If you guys did not have your current positions, what other passions of yours would you explore? So Laura, you can go ahead and start.
I love this question. I am a coffee and wine snob, so I will be the first to tell you. And so I would probably be in those industries, still working with those who are doing the work on the ground, growing the grapes, growing the coffee beans, and supporting them. But if I could have my dream job, that would probably be it.
This is a great question. I am an avid reader, so I would either be a librarian or I would have somebody pay me to read books and critique them.
Okay.
So anybody out there who wants to give me a job to read a book, I would actually do that. So yes, reading books all day. I always tell people that, it's too bad that we had to work 5 days a week. I would love to just sit home and just read a book after book after book. So thank you. Cool. Good question.
I try. I'm going to answer the question because, why not? If I did not have my current job, I think I would really try and do hair. I think I've really been I love the idea of becoming a new person with a different hairstyle and changing your face. So I think that's something I would do if I had the time for it. So Laura, how long have you been a program officer at the Centers for Disease Control, or CDC?
Yeah, the CDC Foundation. I've been a program officer is going on 4 years.
Okay.
I think it's 4 years. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Before you were a program officer, what were you doing, and how do you think that role prepared you for this role or your career?
So prior to the CDC Foundation, I had a career in human resources, and I was HR manager, recruiting manager for 2 local Cleveland organizations, and I supported those organizations from small companies that are 25, 30 people to over 100 people. And when, as you guys may know, when you experience that type of growth, a lot of the funding goes toward programming, right? But then when you have that much growth, there's a lot of administrative, human resources, financial stuff going on in the background that just needs support. And so in my HR role, it was really bringing those organizations in compliance with HR principles, best practices, and supporting their growth. So that's what I did before. Got my master's in public health while I was working as a HR manager, and then the pandemic hit, and that allowed me to get my job at the CEC Foundation.
Talk about perfect timing. Linda, how has your past positions prepared you for the role to be an executive director at Cleveland MOTTEP?
The majority of my career, I've actually worked for nonprofits. So when I got my master's of community health education, I made a decision I wanted to become an executive director at a nonprofit. But before that, I actually worked for the city of Cleveland as a health inspector. And how did that role actually help me work for nonprofits after that? I am truly an introvert. I tell people I'm an introvert. They don't believe me. But that helped me, being a health inspector for the city of Cleveland, helped me be more comfortable with people, because you have to go into a person's establishment, a restaurant and everything, and talk to them. You're forced to do that. You can't go into a restaurant and start inspecting a restaurant without talking to them and kind of growing a relationship with them and everything. So that kind of assisted me with getting outside my shell and everything and being more comfortable with working with the community. So that did assist me with that.
Sounds good. Laura, could you provide us a brief overview of your role and what a typical day as a program officer looks like?
Oh yeah, no, that's a great question as well. So my current role at CDC Foundation is being a program officer, but that has many connotations at the CDC Foundation. It really depends on what projects that you're working on. Since I primarily support the Partnering for Vaccine Equity project, I support I think it's 30 or 31 CBOs across the country out of 101 that we have right now. I also support our Vaccine Resource Hub website. It's a public-facing website. I'm sure we'll get into more of it later. But I support the back-end development of that, as well as the resources on there. Okay. Like reviewing them and making sure they're staying up to date and just making it current for our partners. And then the other thing that I do on this project is handle all of the monitoring and evaluation work and data collection and monitoring work. So when you get as you all know, when you get funding from a big wig like the CDC, it comes with some, they're going to give you this funding. They want you to meet certain criteria or do certain things. And so I take that on as a part of our project and just make sure through the monitoring and evaluation work that we're what we say we're doing, we're actually doing, and the data is coming through for that. A typical day, though, could be our cohort calls. Like yesterday, I had 2 of them, an hour long, where it was a discussion-based cohort call with our CBO partners, meeting with the CDC at least once a month. We have a bunch of internal team meetings because we have so much going on across the whole program. But then there's also a really heavy contract management, administrative side to the program officer role at CDC Foundation. So I feel lucky. I get to work remotely, so I get to do all of that in my home.
Gone are the days.
Yeah. And so that's one thing the pandemic allowed us to prove, that we could, work from home and still be very effective. And so, that's my typical day. It's kind of, it'll vary, but I do touch on all facets of the project.
Sounds good. Linda, what's a typical day like at the Cleveland MOTTEP vaccine program?
Okay, the vaccine program specifically. A typical day at the vaccine program is Welhimina and I actually work with our community educators and making sure that they're going out in the community and spreading the word about the different vaccines and everything. We might be doing a podcast like today. And also we might be getting together with our different project partners and meeting with them. We have a lot of Zoom meetings because it's important for us to engage with different project partners. And not only the ones that we've actually already have relationships with it also, but also ones that we want to actually build relationships. For instance, we're talking to somebody from the county that we want to actually start getting, actually building some more vaccine clinics with them. So it's continuously trying to look around that corner and say, hey, that would be a good partner, that would be a good partner. So it's meetings and actually hosting community vaccine clinics. So no 2 days look alike. We put out fires.
Yes.
Constantly. We try and be as creative as possible. We might be going to a photo shoot with some of our local leaders because they are the ones that people look at as far as, oh, if they're getting a vaccine, we should get a vaccine. So we might be doing a photo shoot. We might be meeting with our marketing team because they're doing our actual billboards and everything. So everything is quite different. Every day is quite different. So, yes.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm recording a commercial.
Yes,
So
exactly. I forgot about the commercials. And I'm just there to support Welhimina. I'm not doing the commercials. I'm just there, just as we said before, just in the corner, just being glad that I don't have to do it. So, yes.
So let's get into COVID-19. Can either of you tell us about your own personal experience with COVID-19? Did you ever have it? Did you know anyone who had it? Do you know anyone who's had it recently?
Yeah, I think COVID-19, I mean, it took us all by surprise and totally turned our lives around.
For sure.
I've certainly had friends and family that have gotten it. I've had friends, parents, and older people in their lives get it, and it has not turned out well for them,
Right.
whether it's hospitalization or death. And then just, having worked with our partners, our CBO partners here for 3 going on 4 years, I've heard their stories too.
Right.
And so there's not one person I know that hasn't either had it or knows someone close to them that has had it. And I also got it once. I made it 3 years in, and
It's a long time.
and then I came down with it. So, I think everyone at some point is probably going to get it if they haven't, or maybe they just don't know. But I think it's going to be part of our lives for a very long time. We're seeing that with the annual updated vaccine that keeps coming out. It seems like that's going to be the trend. But yeah, I think it's here to stay.
Right.
I think it's about us continuing to adapt and pivot based on what's happening with that illness. So,
What about you, Linda?
I've never I never got COVID-19. It's kind of scary that Laura said that she got it all of a sudden in 3 years. I've had family members, of course, who got COVID-19, including the aunt and uncle who lives in Connecticut, who it was very scary because they're older adults and everything who actually got it, who got the vaccine but still got it, but they had a lot of health issues. So we were really afraid for them and everything once they did get COVID-19. So my experience is lately is, I don't know why I'm surprised, but lately I've still been hearing people, even my colleagues, who's like, oh, I had COVID, that's why you didn't see me in the office and everything. So I think one of the important things, and with the commercial that Welhimina did, was that we need to keep on telling people that COVID is not gone. Yeah. You have to be very aware of it, and you have to keep on getting your vaccines and everything, and do things like masking, ventilation in your buildings, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to continue the messaging because it has not left us just because certain things you don't see and everything. As far as it's not as in your face like it used to be, but people are still getting COVID.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still many people getting hospitalized. There's still many people, unfortunately, still passing away, dying from this virus. We know CDC's data is saying that 95% of adults are not up to date on their COVID-19 vaccine, and those the ones that are being hospitalized, the ones that are continuing to become severely ill and maybe even passing away are those that have not gotten their updated vaccine. So,
Not me though. Get your vaccines. Laura, could you provide an overview of the Partnering for Vaccine Equity program and its objectives?
yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. It's a big program.
Yeah.
CDC Foundation is just one partner that received funding from the Centers for Disease Control proper to implement this program. And so we've tried to, at the CDC Foundation, make it very unique. And you all, or Cleveland MOTTEP is part of the most visible pillar of our PAVE project. And so that's where we are partnering with CBOs, community-based organizations, and really like non-traditional public health organizations. So like Cleveland MOTTEP, sometimes our partners are also church coalitions. They're also immigrant, refugee-serving organizations. They are workforce development. They are community development organizations. And these organizations, you all were already trusted messengers, the trusted sources of information in your communities. And due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it became real clear very quickly that guidelines coming from the top were not reaching the people that needed to hear it. And that for many factors, guidelines were constantly changing.
Right.
Weeks, sometimes by the day, and so community members who were already very familiar with your organizations, or CBOs for that matter, that were turning there. And so a lot of the organizations got into COVID-19. This is their first go at having a public health program and impact. And we're really glad to hear that many organizations are going to continue it, based on the last 3 years, going on 4 years, all of the work they have done. They're going to stay in public health, which is amazing. And so that's one pillar of our PAVE project at CDC Foundation. We also have 2 additional pillars. You all know we also partner with national digital social media partners across the country who really do the social listening and monitoring of what's being said about COVID-19 in the media, in the news, across social media channels. They're constantly listening and monitoring what's being said, and then they craft proactive responses to the myths and misinformation that may be circulating at that time. And then we get that messaging out to our organization. So that's how so not only do we have our CBOs working on the ground, in the field, we also have a pillar dedicated to the social media space and monitoring, doing that true social listening work and crafting messages that our CBOs can just to pivot back to what's really most important when those myths start circulating. And then the last pillar that we have is we have built a public-facing website called the Vaccine Resource Hub that is really a resource for our CBOs if they're looking for the most up-to-date information about COVID-19 and other adult vaccines, including flu. Maybe you want to see what the latest talking points are or how to respond to this myth that is it's all up there. It's all free, and it's really a resource for our organizations who maybe they're small. I mentioned it could be like a 3-person church coalition, and they just don't have the bandwidth to do a podcast or create social media posts or flyers. And so this resource hub is a place they can go to kind of fill that gap. So it's a not as heavy of a lift to put together a flyer, to put out a social media post, or train up your volunteers before you go do a canvassing event. So that's the point of that. So we've really tried to have this balanced PAVE project on the field, on the ground, in the field work by our CBOs, social media work as well, and then a website that brings it all together.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have all your bases covered. How much funding So let's start first. What is the criteria for applying for funding, and how much funding could a CBO get?
Yeah, no, great question. So the funding varies year to year, but we've been very fortunate to provide funding to our CBOs. I think the first year it was up to $100,000 annually, and the last 2 years it's been $120,000.
Okay.
And so, and I think what has been so helpful is knowing that funding is available or potentially coming year over year.
Right.
You can have a much stronger program when you know that you'll be able to carry forward staff from year to year, or have that health fair event every year, or it just helps build trust and consistency in the community. And so really fortunate to be able to provide funding like that to our CBO partners.
Wonderful. So you mentioned that sometimes there are criteria with the funding that people get. Could you elaborate on that?
They have to be like a nonprofit.
Right.
Is that the type of criteria?
Yeah. So like, what can the funding be used for? Are there things that you can't use the funding for?
Yes. So yeah, when our organizations receive funding, it's really important that the PAVE project itself is really about increasing vaccine confidence, specifically COVID-19 and influenza flu vaccine confidence among community members who have historically been hesitant or even left out of those types of conversations. And so our CBOs are based on the things that are the field work or the industry they're already in. They have an engaged community presence already. And so it's really, our CBOs we give them funding to do vaccine education and outreach, however they see fit to however they see fit to keep their community engaged, or what speaks to them, to meet them where they are. And it varies. I mean, we have CBOs in Idaho, we have CBOs in LA County, California, Cleveland, Ohio, rural Tennessee. I mean, not one program is similar. They're all different. They're all very tailored to what their community needs. But it does focus on vaccine education and outreach. Unfortunately, the funding cannot be used to purchase vaccines or administer vaccines, which has been a point of contention for sure, because you don't want to do all this education and outreach, and then you finally have a community member who's ready to get vaccinated, and then you can't give them a vaccine. It's very, so we've definitely been, we've been hearing that across the board, and we know it can be really frustrating, but that's why our organizations are also encouraged to partner with vaccine providers who already have the vaccine or who can get it, and then who, are able to administer it. So that's health departments, that's pharmacies, clinics, community clinics for sure, even university medical programs, who need some field work or something like that. So our CBO partners have gotten really creative on ensuring that their program work remains, focused on education, vaccine education and outreach, while our partners can actually come to events or things like that to round it out and administer a vaccine.
Sounds good. About how many CBOs have participated in the PAVE program so far?
In the CDC Foundation's program, we have partnered with 123 across the states.
That's a lot. It's a lot of people.
In year 3 right now, we have 101.
Okay. Question for Linda: what specific strategies or initiatives have you used the funding from the PAVE program to implement to address disparities in vaccine access?
So over the 3 years, which Laura has brought up, one of the really cool things about the CDC Foundation and this program is that it's been sustainable for over 3 years. Oftentimes when you work with a foundation, it's 1 year, okay, our funding is gone. It's like, okay, well, but the problem still is
here.
there and everything. So one of the things that we've done over the 3 years is we figured out, oh, this works really well. We're going to do this the next year and everything. So over the years, one of the things that we've done is, for instance, the actual commercials that we've done. We know that people watch TV, and we work with a channel, WEWS, Channel 5, where they work with us, and they make sure that they work on they insert our commercials on television shows where they know people are watching these television shows, the market and everything. So we also utilize marketing on bus kiosk and also the bus stop signs and everything, because we know that our focus group, our focus communities that we work on, they sometimes don't actually drive their own cars. They actually have to take the bus. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure that every year that we do, is because they're sitting there waiting for the bus, and here's this big sign with people that they know, somebody from who actually has historically had a funeral home. That's one of our people that we actually had as one of our models and everything, talking about you need to get your vaccine, you need to make sure that you're keeping your family safe and everything. So that's one of the things that we've used in the past. But one of the most important things that we've done for 3 years is we hired community educators to be there at our vaccine clinics, be at our hosts, our partner vaccine clinics, to talk to people about the reason why it's important for them to get the vaccine. But also, we've had our community educators hold the hand of people while they're getting their vaccine, because sometimes that's the biggest fear is, oh, it's gonna hurt, I think it's gonna cause me problems and everything. So people can talk face to face with people. So that's one of the things that we've done over the 3 years, is actually hire those community educators so it can be a face-to-face communication and everything. So we've used different marketing, billboards, commercials, also educational pieces and everything. But one of the most important things I feel that's always been in our proposal when we go for funding with CDC Foundation is that community educator. Because I know when I go to a health fair and I have questions for somebody, me just getting a brochure is not going to cut it. But somebody answering a question that I have for them is what's going to actually make me change a behavior.
True.
So, yes.
Laura, how does the program engage with communities to build trust and promote vaccine uptake? Is that something you guys are doing?
I mean, we try to do it,
Okay.
but we do really we have partnered with organizations that are already trustworthy,
Right.
are already impactful in their community. So we've just, I think we have just given our these partners just funding and support to keep doing that, and then year over year keep doing that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So we were on a call yesterday, a cohort call, and I think one of the CBOs, community-based organization, actually said something I think a lot of the community-based organizations feel is that CDC Foundations put a lot of trust in us, that we know what our community needs. And I think that's really important. We know that our community needs somebody, like, for instance, on our bus stop signs, just that, not to have like a clip art of, go and get your vaccine. Oh, I know Marcella Boycott. She's been with EF Boy, for years and everything.
Right.
She's telling us we need to get our vaccines. Oh, I know this pastor and everything. We know what our community needs and everything. And so CDC Foundation put their trust in us as a community-based organization to know what our community needs are. And I think that's really important, that a foundation is not trying to attempt to think that they know what our community needs. And I've worked with grants where they say you need to do such and such, even though they have never been in our community before. We know what our community needs, and we actually are really fortunate that we're working with a foundation that does that for us.
Yeah.
And we've tried to, we did have some guidelines, right? Like, you've heard Linda talk about the community navigator or community health worker. Also, we've heard this as like an influential messenger. So CDC wanted our CBO partners to, kind of stay in this box of, how do we build trust? How do we do education outreach? Well, we do it through influential messengers. We do it through communication products. We do it through events, building partnerships in the community, hosting mobile clinics, vaccine clinics. And so like these broad strokes, I guess, activities that we've encouraged our CBOs to do, but then we've left it at that. So maybe influential messengers are community health workers for Cleveland MOTTEP, or the community navigators. For other organizations, the influential messengers are barbers and salon owners, or maybe we have another organization that, their influential messengers are social media influencers.
Right.
So, but we've tried to, broad strokes say these are the activities that, we'd like for you to do, but then the CBO can implement them in the way that they see fit that will most speak to the community that they're prioritizing.
Right. Can you share an example of a successful community engagement effort that besides Cleveland MOTTEP has put on that you thought was super creative and like really impacted their community?
Yeah, no, that's great. And we have so many stories.
Right.
I mean, it's really hard to pick just one. I would say in the time that we're, and you have heard this before, but in the like time and place that we are right now with where we are with COVID and people's perception of the pandemic right now, the most effective strategy that our organizations are implementing is not directly saying COVID-19 right now because it turns people off. People get angry. We've heard stories of it's just the turn off, and so you lose that community engagement just by mentioning COVID-19. And so our CBOs have gotten creative. They have an art community event, and then they'll provide education about holistic health, like all vaccines. COVID-19 is one of many that you get boosters throughout your life. Or did you know that so we as a culture think of vaccines are really important for children a lot of the time, and adults are left out. But like the shingles vaccine, for instance, just being able to share more information, have your community navigators be able to speak to the importance of getting vaccines as an adult, and then being able to also like pinpoint and talk to that one community member about their fear or their hesitancy, because it's going to be different for each person.
Right.
And so really training up your navigators to have those like motivational, almost interviewing conversations so that they can then support that community member to make the healthiest decision for them.
Right.
Because it's going to be different. So I would say the strategy right now where we are in this time and place of the pandemic is our CBOs hosting events, even outreach events, but almost leaving off COVID-19 as the driver. It's just like,
here's a community event, come out,
and then there's a big push of COVID-19 and flu information there, but it's not the central piece,
right?
At least in the advertising and marketing of the event. So
what do you think are some key barriers or challenges the program has encountered recently in ensuring vaccine equity and getting people vaccinated?
That's a good question. The barriers, I think it's really going to depend on, it's community specific, but access to the vaccine,
right?
Access to accurate information about the vaccines, even transportation is a huge. I think we mentioned that already, but a lot, the people who need the vaccine are the ones who are working in, high risk environments at a lot of the time, maybe not working, maybe are homeless, maybe they don't have cars, or they have one car for their family, and so it's transportation feeds into the access barrier too. But
Right.
so some ways our CBOs are working or to address that challenge is they provide Uber rides. They help get a community member to get a vaccine appointment at a pharmacy or health department or what have you, and then they'll actually like schedule the Uber ride to take them to get the vaccine and then bring them back. We also have had I'll mention one of our CBOs in Idaho who would actually bring there's a big like farm worker industry right in Idaho, and so she would actually work with the consulate and other partners to bring the vaccine to where the farm workers were living during the busy season that they were like working in fields. And so it's just about understanding the need, figuring out how to address it. Can we do it? And then doing it.
Right.
And so it varies between communities, but yeah, I think trying to overcome transportation barriers, trying to overcome access barriers, keep building that trust and confidence. Really depends on the messenger, right? And then I would say the biggest challenge right now is with this program is that the vaccine costs. Purchase, storage, supply of the vaccine is not covered by funds. So that's just been an ongoing challenge for our organizations. That and not being able to, the program is so focused on COVID and flu instead of all adult vaccines. So that also has been a challenge because it would be a lot easier to get funding to talk about all vaccines versus a highly politicized one right now.
Right. Fair. Linda, what are some key barriers or challenges that you've noticed in encountering and promoting vaccine equity?
I think it was like for the first couple of years, it was so easy for us to actually get those vaccines and everything. So now we have to be really creative about partner with different pharmacies and everything to get the vaccines for our people and everything. Also, vaccine fatigue. People are like, oh, I'm not getting another vaccine. It's like people think I got one vaccine. Why am I going to be? So it's actually us being more creative and trying to get the message out about that COVID is still here. You still have to get the vaccine and everything. And also the access to the vaccine. We have to be creative as far as us getting the vaccine to people, to the people where they live and where they work and everything, so people don't have to travel a long distance. Our very last vaccine clinics that we had was centrally located for people. Our very last one, we had the city mission. They were actually our project partner, Fair Hill Partners, worked with them, and city mission, the people from the city mission actually was bused to our actual vaccine clinic, which was wonderful. All of a sudden we saw these bunch of people coming, and we're like, who are these people? And they're like from the mission. They came here to get their vaccine and everything, which was great. So we always know that it's easier for people to, if they really have really easy access to the vaccine, they're more apt to actually get the vaccine. So it's just one of the our strategies we have to be as creative as possible, as it's harder and harder for us to get people vaccinated because of access to the vaccine, and also because people are fatigued by the vaccine and everything.
I also think it's just really important that while the funding is for COVID-19 and flu vaccine education outreach, the community members that our organizations are working with, they have other priorities, childcare, housing, food, work, and so it's really, sometimes when I've heard the stories, like when your community health workers are talking to the community members who really needed. I mean, COVID-19 is just not the priority for them,
Yes.
and so, trying to be really creative, trying to almost provide a full wraparound case management service to community members, just to be able to come around to the COVID-19 or flu vaccine education part. I think that's been a learning curve. I think, and I think some of that is even more important now than it was, a couple of years ago.
That's very true. Laura brings up a good point. Actually, like our last couple of vaccine clinics, we had food giveaway.
Yeah.
We had resources, educational resources, people for our project partners from different organizations and everything, giving out educational resources, health resources. CareSource was there, different organizations there to actually disseminate their information. But one of the most important things was that food distribution.
Yeah.
So they were there to get their basket. They were there to get not only their vaccines, but also that resources that they were getting from all our different project partners and everything. So not only there for one thing, but also to get the other resources that was there. And Laura, once again, they have more to think about than just a vaccine. Do I still have a job tomorrow?
Yeah.
Do I have daycare? Where's my daycare? So yes.
And and incentivizing the vaccination has really
Yes.
turned up so many numbers, because once you provide somebody with like a monetary thing, something they can use to go do something, they don't feel like, they don't feel like the day is gone because they went to go get a vaccination.
Yeah.
There's more reward. So
because you never know that gift card that you're giving to somebody may be the first meal that they've had in a couple of weeks and everything on their table and everything.
Yes.
So yeah.
Let's pivot and talk about data and metrics. So first, I just want to ask Laura, how does PAVE use technology in their initiatives? So what are things that you guys are tracking? Are you guys using your social media presence, or even the Vaccine Resource Hub, if you want to elaborate on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we try to track as much data as we can. For the first 3 years of the project, though, the data that we were collecting was dictated by the CDC. So we're really happy for year 4. We've actually been able to design our own data questions.
Okay.
Some that'll be more hopefully tailored to CBO work on the ground, or some of the social media work in social media spaces. Because the reports that you all are filling out right now were created 3 years ago and haven't been updated. And so the projects have just changed, the landscape has changed, and the reporting report has not changed.
Right.
And so we're excited to be able to kind of update that for year 4. But I would say some of just talking about some of the broad strokes activities that I mentioned, that's the data that we're looking for.
Okay.
So, the types of influential messengers that our CBOs are working with. So some of them work with community health workers. Some of them work with healthcare workers at healthcare settings to better, they educate them on how to engage, someone from a racial ethnic minority,
Right.
that doesn't turn them off, or and so they work with them, and so healthcare workers. Some of them work with local politicians, local news, local radio people to be their messenger. So we're really collecting data on the types of messengers, types of events that our organizations are putting on, the types of communication products that they're developing, and of course tracking the as a result of all of this work that you're doing on the ground, how many vaccines are being administered. And so happy to say that there has been over 230,000 vaccines administered just from our 123 CBO partners.
That's amazing.
So that's the type of data that we're collecting to be able to show impact of to CDC, but also to hopefully other funders, how much can get done really with limited resources, how much our CBOs are doing, and then and the how much they're really doing with the $120,000 they get, and so that's really the CBO side of it. I would say for social media partners, it's really the data that we're collecting there is more types of resources they are developing, newsletters, talking points they're developing and sharing. They also have their own influencers. So been really, happy through our partnerships with them to work with Whoopi Goldberg, to work with the names are leaving me right now, but we have their videos online. And so it was really cool to see the creative content that came out of just from, our social media partners also having influencers that they, and so you look at how much reach, how many people are seeing these messages on the weekly or basis. And then on our Vaccine Resource Hub, we're tracking page views, we're tracking downloads, we're tracking uploads, we're tracking, which resources are downloaded the most.
Right.
And then, there's a whole process behind the scenes that is reviewing those resources for, is it still accurate? Have the guidelines changed? Do we need to get this off of the website because the guidelines changed? So that, one example is we don't use the word booster anymore. It's just updated vaccine, so we had to kind of skim through our resources and get rid of the booster language on them, so it's constantly a moving piece with the 3 different pillars, and the data is, the project scopes for each pillar is totally different. So the data we're collecting across all of our partners is different.
Linda, how does MOTTEP use technology in their initiatives, and what are some ways we are measuring impact?
So this is all Welhimina. This is all our project coordinator, program coordinator, and everything. We utilize technology with our social media. We utilize the information that we receive from CDC Foundation and everything, which makes it really easy because we don't have to come up with new information at all. All we have to do is kind of share the information that we got from the vaccine resources and everything, because they have really good information about vaccines and flu. Information that we receive from their website and everything. That's how we use their technology. And Welhimina, you can answer that question because I'm serious. That's what Welhimina does as far as technology and everything.
So I use the Vaccine Resource Hub a lot. Like I check it once a week for something that we can post on our social media. We don't have like a huge social media presence, but I think it's important to always update it. And people like our posts. So just trying to make sure we're providing accurate information. And also I always link the vaccines.gov, hyperlink on there so that people can, even if they just read that short blurb, they can always click on that and get more information. So that's the way we use technology. And then also just making sure we're being visible. I make sure sometimes I post our community educators just so people can get an idea of the people who are going out and talking for us and who are the face of our vaccine program.
We also just revised Welhimina, and when I say we, I really do mean that we. Welhimina just revised and revamped our website, which we're really excited about. Because it was very. It was very much needed to be updated and everything. Overhaul. So one of the things that now that it is updated, our marketing group, it has a section specifically about vaccines, and our marketing group, Sweeney Marketing, is going to let us know exactly what's the best way for us, that our vaccine section on our website, the best way for it to pop. Maybe it's going to include some new videos, etc. So we're really excited about that. So that's another way of utilizing the technology. And this might not really deal with the question that Welhimina asked. One of the things that we make sure with our community educators is they have the most updated information. We make sure that at least once a month that they spend at least an hour, 2 or more. It depends on of getting some information from the vaccine for the vaccine hub, or actually watching a webinar,
Yeah.
because there's plenty of webinars that we get from CDC Foundation and everything, so they can actually get as much information, because as Laura said, is ever changing.
Yes.
So when they go out in the public and they talk to our community residents, they can give the best information as possible. So that's how Cleveland MOTTEP utilizes technology.
Yeah, and then even recently we had a meeting where we showed them the Vaccine Resource Hub, like the I think it was like the orientation video, and we just played that and like just made sure that they were aware that that was a resource. They didn't even have to like sign into. They could just go there on their phones and go through the information, and it's not always us sending them information. They can find information on their own.
I'll mention one other technology that's just really cool is one of our social media partners developed these easy to understand, slow your scroll training. So they're trying to train anyone who wants to take this course. And when I say course, it's like a 10-minute click through that you can do on your phone. But it's learning how to identify misinformation on your feed, on your social media feed. So slow your scroll is to help you understand, because it's good. I mean, the false information that is spreading, it is hard to identify.
Yeah.
Even someone who knows it's false, I'm like, you start it's like I have to think about that. And so it's really creative. It's meant to draw you in. And so how do you, as an adult who maybe even isn't that familiar with social media, and I would say I am, and I still get stumped sometimes.
Right.
So this quick 10-minute training teaches anyone how to identify misinformation on their feed, maybe in the media, just little things, and you can start implementing it right away, because it's just about being aware. And then that organization also did another training on how to address, when your family or friend comes to you and says something like a vaccine myth to you, and that's hard to address because it's a family tie. Do you cover it up because you don't want to hurt feelings? It's a holiday. You're like not doing it this time. So this training provides some ways to do it in a more subtle way. Again, something you can take in 10 minutes and then be able to start implementing right away. So those are free trainings available in both English and Spanish that I think are great. That really offer like some takeaways, quick takeaways.
Yeah. We're thinking of doing a workshop, a kind of like a town hall about COVID, hopefully this year. And like that is a good point, because a lot of people just believe what they see on their phone and take it as face value, and no one really does research anymore. So I like that. We're going to steal that from the Vaccine Resource Hub.
Okay. You send me an email. I will send you the links.
Yeah.
That might help you plan.
Linda, I don't know if you answered how we are measuring the impact of our initiatives when it comes to vaccine equity and getting people vaccinated.
So most definitely our community educators they have to take account of how many people stop by our tables. When we work with a project partner, we make sure that they get the number of the people who are getting vaccines. When we are hosting our own vaccine clinic, it's pretty easy for us to get that, because we'll just get the information from like a Rite Aid or whoever is the vaccine provider. We also look at our Facebook, how many people has visited our Facebook, how many people, for instance, we get information from our provider, our vendor who actually does our bus stop signs, etc. So we have ways of which we actually get the metrics for our how many people are actually getting our information, including our commercials, etc. Yeah. So we're getting a really good reach and everything. Yes.
Laura, I wanted to quickly ask you, I've recently been noticed on the Vaccine Resource Hub, there's been a lot more like expansion into different languages. Could you like kind of expand on like what was the thinking behind that? And like, could you just expand on that?
You mean like the types of languages?
The messaging and like the types of social media posts that are now available.
The Vaccine Resource Hub 3 years ago, we wanted a site that our partner, our CBO partners could go to to get information quickly, and they knew it was accurate, scientifically proven. But what we've noticed is, while that's still a need, it's turning into a technical assistance website, a CBO capacity building website. We have, if an organization, any organization, wanted to start implementing health equity strategies throughout their programs, not just a PAVE program, but we have a roadmap for doing that. We have a roadmap for engaging diverse audiences beyond maybe what your typical priority community member is. And then, we also have videos on there. We have funding opportunities on there. So we're in a really cool time to, talk about what's next for the Vaccine Resource Hub, because it's bigger than a vaccine resource hub now.
Right.
And so, but we've intentionally done that. We're hoping to get more funding to keep it going.
Yeah.
Because it is now a site that you all know, and many of our organizations use it. And so just really trying to continue expanding in that way. Like, how can we keep our CBOs engaged? What are the things that they need more information on? And how can we tie vaccine education outreach into that, and then also still help our CBOs grow and build and expand.
All right. So let's move on to sustainability. How does the program aim to ensure sustainability of vaccine equity efforts beyond the immediate COVID-19 response and influenza response?
That's a hard question. We're very, unfortunately, very limited to what the CDC's guidelines are as far as how we can use the funding we were given, and then given to our CBO partners and other partners. But I think, last year at the end of end of year 2, we hired Marilyn Watkins. She's our senior capacity development person, and she used to run her own CBO. She's done a lot of health equity work in her community, and so she just has a very unique and knack for engagement with our CBOs. I'm not sure if you guys have had a chance to talk with her. You've seen her on our cohort calls.
Definitely have.
But she just brings this wealth of knowledge in the capacity building realm of CBO. What do you want to do? How do you want to sustain? Is the vaccine program that you've implemented sustainable, and is it something you want to keep going? I think it's a very individual conversation. It actually may have to start with Linda and you deciding that, and then we are trying on the back end to have as many resources, as many avenues of support that we can, based on what you all decide is good for your organization, your community. I hope we're doing a good job of it. We're trying. It's at the forefront of all of our planning right now, because we know COVID funds are drying up. We know the PAVE project might be over after year 4. We're hoping for a year 5, but and so those are real concerns. And we've spent a lot of time building up our relationships with our partners, and so we're trying to provide, again, like I said, provide those resources, avenues for sustainability on the, when you decide what you want to do, when you decide what is needed, we're hopefully have some suggestions and recommendations for that.
Linda, I guess I'll ask you, what are do you have any strategies? Wrap up?
Strategies for sustainability. Our strategies for sustainability, and Laura brought up a good point, is that one of the cool things is that we will actually kind of make a decision with our board of whether or not we want to continue our vaccine program, our vaccine education program, based on our success for 3+ years and everything. One of the cool things with CDC Foundation is they always give us information about other funding opportunities, which is really good. And I always take a look at that because I always want more money for Cleveland MOTTEP. So in the future, and probably a conversation that we'll probably have to start this year with our advisory board group, and especially our program committee, is sustainability of our vaccine program. Because I think every nonprofit has to think about that, about the future of what their organization is going to look like in their programming.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you, Laura, for coming down to see us. We can see you in real life instead of over Zoom.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me and letting me join your podcast today.
Of course. And then thank you, Linda, for being the co-host as well.
Thank
and
you.
Collaborator. It's Welhimina, and I'm signing out. Bye.